Hi, today on Free Field Training, we're going to be talking about testifying in court, specifically testifying in court as a police officer, security guard, loss prevention, things like that, because that's where my area of expertise lies. However, I hope that this would be handy to anyone who has to testify in court for any reason. So please leave me some comments and questions. We'll try to take some of those at the end if there's anything topical involved, and let's get right to it. So when you testify in court, everyone is going to tell you, well, just tell the truth. And that goes without saying. You need to just tell the truth. The problem is, just tell the truth does not encapsulate everything that you need to know in order to be good at testifying. And part of being good at testifying is it's just like playing a game. You have to know the rules of the game and you have to understand how those rules affect the way that you play it. Any good attorney will tell you that there's strategy involved in the statements and arguments that they make during court, and you are part of that strategy if you're a cop or security guard or loss prevention or somebody and you're testifying on a case. So beyond just telling the truth, there's other things you need to know. Uh, you are going to go up and you're probably going to be put on to testify for the prosecution if you're in the line of work like I am. The prosecutor is going to come in. They are going to ask you questions. You're probably going to know in advance what those questions are, and they're all going to be related to the reports that you generated in the video that was created if you have body cameras or patrol car cameras or any of that. Now, you are going to have an easy time with that. They might even move into the realm of trying to lead you with certain questions to try to get out of you what they want. What I want to talk about a little bit is cross-examination, because this is when people freak out. It's real easy for most cops. They'll read their report, they get prepped by the state's attorney or district attorney or whatever they call them where you're at, and they'll get through the testimony, and then cross-examination comes up, and the defense attorney for whoever comes up and starts asking questions, and they start losing their mind about it. So the first thing that you need to know, and the easiest one to learn, the hardest one to do, not let the defense attorney set the pace at which you're going to testify. Because they ask the questions quickly doesn't mean you need to answer them quickly. In fact, my recommendation for new people is always wait at least 3 seconds for the prosecution to object before you answer their question. So if they say, "Officer, in your report, you stated blah, 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 blah. Is that true?" To the best of my recollection, yeah. Or, "No, I don't believe that's what's in there." Simple enough. Give them 3 seconds to object, because sometimes it takes a second for them to see, oh, well, this isn't the line of questioning I expected. Process it, and then say, oh, we need to object to this, to like get their framework together for why they're going to object. Because they might object, and the judge will be like, on what grounds? Okay, now we need to discuss it. So they need to know what grounds first, right? So don't let them set the pace. Don't, because the state's attorney, or because the defense attorney is going at you a mile a minute, doesn't mean that you need to respond back that quickly. The second thing I would say is don't let anyone summarize what you've said. If you've answered a question, and then they say, well, wouldn't it be fair to say yada, 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 trying to summarize your statement, but in a different way with different verbiage, don't agree to that. If the state's attorney is on it, they will probably say, we already answered that, or he already answered that, or they already answered that, or whoever they're going to say asked and answered. If not, you can say, well, those aren't the words that I used. And that's completely respectful and honest. Would it be fair to say yada, 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 those are not the words that I use? Well, would you use those words? No, I didn't. I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have thought of using those words, because I think the words that I use most accurately explains what happened or what I observed, or however it goes. The key there is to stay respectful with it, right? If the judge says you have to answer, then just answer, if that would be fair to say. But most of the time they're going to say, well, I mean, you're kind of, the judges know what the game that they're playing. They're trying to get you to agree to something that you would not have said. So next is answer their question and only their question. Sometimes a defense attorney will cross-examine you, and they will do it in an accusatory way. So if you say something, if they say something like, "Officer, did you get a warrant before you searched whatever?" And it might have been perfectly legal for you to search whatever prior to getting a warrant. However, if you say, "Well, it wasn't my case and we didn't have time," you start giving excuses. Now it looks like you're making excuses for having done something wrong. If you've done nothing wrong, you say, "No," and that's it. You don't. If they ask you why, then you can answer, "Well, this it wasn't necessary in this case." Well, why is that? Well, for blah 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 blah, for the it was an exigency issue, or whatever else. But in all likelihood, what they're looking to do is trip you up and have you start looking like a fool, making excuses, and then the prosecutor is going to come back and they're going to cross-examine again, and they're going to be like, "All right, well, on redirect, they're going to say, well, officer, isn't it true that blah 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 happened?" Okay, well, you didn't need a warrant for that. The last one, and probably the easiest one for me and the hardest one for a lot of people, is don't care. People who care a lot end up tripping themselves up. They take a personal interest in the case. And our job is not to take a personal interest in the case. It is to make sure people don't kill each other. And then if that involves referring a case for prosecution, we refer for prosecution. And if that involves testifying, then we testify. We win cases, and I say the same thing we win as when we lose. It brings me absolutely no pleasure, right? Whether you're convicted or not doesn't matter to me. And if I come to the stand with that mindset, then I don't get personally involved in the case. And I just have to remember, I'm not the one that's going to prison. I'm not the one looking at jail time. I'm not the one that's going to have to do swab. I'm not the one that's going to catch the fine or whatever else as the person that arrested them or detained them, whatever you're doing. It's not nothing, right? And if we get emotionally involved, people can tell that we're emotionally involved in the case. And when you have people that are emotionally involved in the case and they look like they're emotionally involved, it's easier to for people to think that you're lying. People who are emotionally involved, if you've done this job for any length of time, you know that people who are emotionally involved in the case tend to lie to enhance their side of the story. If you look like you are completely detached from it, you're less likely to look like you're making stuff up. And that's it. That's testifying. That's the things that I tell brand new cops before they testify for the first time. They go up on the stand. Yeah, don't lie. The state's attorneys are going to tell you that. Everybody's going to tell you, just tell the truth. But just tell the truth and testifying believably on the thing that you're talking about are two different things. So we're going to go back. We're going to take some of the topical comments and questions that are on here, and then I will sign off. It's been a blast for everybody the last couple of weeks. All right, let's see. Gaming with Zeke says, "Hey Tommy, hi, hello. Best body camera for security." I've only used a body camera as a police officer. I haven't had the opportunity to use one working side jobs. The one we use is Axon, and my recommendation would be if you're going to use it for the purposes of security, is you have one that has pre-event recording. So when you push the button, it's got at least video for 20 or 30 seconds before it, because things can happen fast. And then it's got a good runtime. I know people are using cell phones as body cameras. In a pinch, you can use a cell phone as a body camera, especially if you have an old cell phone that doesn't still have service on it. You can use that as a body camera and then upload video later. I know people who are live streaming as a body camera. I don't recommend that because you're going to send your phone bill through the roof, and also live streams can be dropped, so you could have partial video and then the live stream drops. But if you're going to spend money on a body camera, it needs to have those two things. It's got to make it through a shift, even if it's running the whole time, because you never know. And you could be working security at the gas station or something, and somebody gets murdered in the parking lot, and now your body camera's running for 8 hours. So is the thing going to run for 8 hours? If it's not, it's no good for you. And then it has pre-event recording. So if somebody runs the grocery store you're working at and starts knocking things over, and you hit the button or put the button or do whatever to toggle the body camera on, is it then going to pre-record and get them coming in the door, or whatever your initial response to it was. Sorry about the background noise of my dog. She's nuts. Night Rain says, will they use our incident report in the court cases? More often than you would think, security reports are used in court cases. They're normally used more by the defense, but I have seen prosecutors bring in, especially on loss prevention type of cases where you've got a shoplifting case, people bringing in the reports and the documentation from security or from loss prevention. In fact, normally they're just about the only thing that they have to go on. The best thing that loss prevention can do to bolster their reports is have good video in the store. Try to capture as much as they possibly can on video, so that way they can see like, all right, this is where the case went through. A big problem for a lot of loss prevention people, in my experience, has been loss prevention people that are working alone, that are going just by what they saw on the sales floor and then following the person out and doing a report on it. And then there's no supporting video. And that might be a good case study for having a body camera on for loss prevention, maybe a little button camera or something like that. B says, 4 words, refer to my statement. Well, that's the thing, is you don't want to be overtly hostile about it. Remember what I said in the last one. You don't want to look like you're going nuts, that you're emotionally involved in this. You want to come off as like, don't really care whether this person gets convicted or not, without saying that. Did you respond to this, Edward? Yes, I responded. When you responded, what did you observe? I observed, such and such doing X, Y, and Z. Can you identify that person in court? The young lady to the left of counsel in the yellow jumpsuit, right? Like, don't get excited about it. If somebody crosses and says, well, officer, is it true that at that time she was pushing a baby carriage? Yes. Not an excuse for why you stopped the lady pushing the baby carriage. You don't need an excuse. You were doing your job. Yes. That's it. But we don't want to come off as overly hostile to the defense, right? It is a adversarial system, but because it's adversarial doesn't mean we need to be a jerk. AWM Perry says, if one's company is dragging their heels on body cams, are there any good tips on persuading them? I've been told I can't wear my phone on my shoulder radio loop because somebody might think they're being recorded. Well, here's the thing is that, when it comes down to it, in a public space, you don't have any expectation of privacy. People can just walk around videotaping in any public space in the US, as far as I'm aware of, right? If it's a public space, if anybody could come in, anybody could videotape. So the idea that security or loss prevention or somebody would be restricted from videotaping is kind of silly from a legal standpoint. Now, the owner of the store or the owner of the company might not like the perception of it, and that's on them. If you work for them, you are their agent, and so you have to follow their rules, especially if you want to be indemnified later when somebody sues. It is what it is. I would explain how use of force incidents go down when there's body cameras, and also how prosecutions go up when there's body cameras. But if they probably already know that if they've even done a quick Google search on them, so there's not a lot more to argue there. Ryan Shizbalski, I may have missed it, Tommy, but was the Brady List mentioned at all for lying cops? No, I didn't bring it up because that comes back to tell the truth, which is our basic principle that everybody gets told before they go to court. Here's why you have to tell the truth. One of many reasons why. If you get caught lying on the stand, you will go on a special list that the state's attorney's office has, at least around here, and they won't let you testify in cases anymore, which essentially means you can't be a witness, which essentially means you don't have a career. Not recommended. Jim Poor says, I have 4 dogs of my own and live with 3 more in the house. No worries on the talkative pups. Yeah, but she's nuts. She barks at everything like crazy. All right. Unless we got somebody else that wants to pop on through with comments or questions. I know it's the middle of the day on a Sunday, but it's the time that I had. And everybody complains when I do them at 2 a.m. and says, oh, it's 2 a.m. But I get more people at 2 a.m. than I do at 2 p.m. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that and maybe even learned something about testifying. If it did help you out with learning how to testify a little better, or you do a better job at testifying because of it, leave me a comment or a question down below so that I can get more algorithm pumping behind the channel and get more views. Until next week, you guys be safe and take care.